Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us this evening for this Maximise Income for a Future Fit for Pharmacy through NHS and private services. I'm delighted you could give up some time this evening to join us. My name is Nick Hay and I chair the National Pharmacy Association. And it's a real pleasure and privilege to have you here. Olivier is going to talk us through some of the things that we're going to learn tonight. We're going to have the Q&A chat open. Please put your questions in there. And we're going to have time to be able to ask Olivier questions. We've also got some fantastic sponsors with us this evening. So we've got Avanex, Skills for Pharmacy and Timber Health. Thank you very much for joining us. And I'm going to let those guys actually introduce themselves and give you a flavour of what they do, linking in perfectly to some of these things that we're actually talking about, an upskilled team and extra services and more efficiency to be able to deliver frontline care in both NHS and private services. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to, I think, Avanex Automation first. Over to you guys. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next. Yeah, I just want to spend a quick presentation about automation and the benefits and how it can actually help you in the pharmacy. Next. Where automation comes into a pharmacy is right from the minute the stock arrives into the pharmacy, it can help you. Currently, lots of our customers are spending hours putting stock away, from checking the delivery notes, sorting them into groups, putting them into shelf, and doing the manual expiry date checks, which are all sort of important but quite time-consuming matters that have to happen. Next, Helen. Yeah, this typically from our customer feedback can take 2 to 4, maybe more hours a day. That's 2 to 4 hours of somebody doing something that's not really that productive. Next. So when you have a robot, it takes all that workload away. It'll automatically sort your stock out, check the expiry dates, put it in a suitable location where it knows where it is. You can run stock reports and everything else that you need to do on it. So instead of 4 to 5 hours a day, it's down to 5 minutes a day in terms of how long it takes to put the items into the 1904 hopper. Next. So when it comes to dispensing, again, typically without a robot, you tend to be searching for the medication, walking around dispensaries, see if it's in stock, finding the items, again, checking the expiry dates, bring the items back to your bench and do all the relevant work that the pharmacists and dispensers have to do. You put a robot in there. Next. The robot does all this for you. It gets a request from the PMR. It knows where the items are. It knows the expiry dates. It'll dispense by the shortest expiry date every time. With our particular robot, it has a collection basket, so it'll actually go and collect the whole prescription and deliver it in one go, which saves time and energy. It's a lot more efficient. And it also tells you what you haven't got in stock, unlike some robots where you don't know if all the items have been delivered, if some are still being picked. Our solution actually tells you on the screen what you've asked for, how many you've asked for, how many the robot's given you, and when that order's complete. So freeing up that time that you don't have to stand in front of that exit waiting for the items to arrive, you can better utilize that time doing something else, maybe getting the next prescription ready, a variety of different things you could do, knowing that the robot will bring everything to you. Next. So where else can the robot help? Next. Expiry dates, typically from feedback from customers, they spend 2 or 3 hours a month just checking expiry dates on what's actually on the shelves. Well, with our robot, you don't have to do that. The robot knows all the expiry dates. It won't dispense an item that's expired. It gives you the ability to find out when items expire. It gives you on-screen information as to what has expired. Following on from that, it minimizes the errors. There's no picking errors with the robot. The robot only gives you what you ask for. So you have peace of mind that what you've got is what you need. There's no look-alike, sound-alike issues. It reduces reliance on having barcode scanning verification all the way. If you ask for a particular item, that's what the robot gives you. Next. When it comes to stock takes, the robot will actually give you stock reports, so you don't have to actually count the stock, which is quite beneficial at the end of the year for audit reports. The other good benefit that our robot has is the ability to manage split packs. Now, a lot of pharmacies over the years that I've spoken to have had big issues with split packs. I've seen pharmacies where they've got shelves and shelves of split packs and duplicate split packs. Once I've had our robots been installed and I've used our app, that's been minimized to very few, which has led to reduction in stock holding, reduction in wastage, which has all actually helped them put that money back into the business. Next. Okay, so when I spoke to customers and added up sort of the benefits they got from our robot and put all of these timings together, we were looking at about 100 hours a month they were getting back. So, you know, what else could you do in the pharmacy with those 100 hours? Depending on the people whose time's released, you could upskill them to do more services, a variety of different things you could do. So, but it's 100 hours every month you could get back. Next. Now, this is a real world example from one of our customers. They had the robot about a year. And when we spoke to them to find out what kind of benefits they actually achieved, and this was the numbers they came back with. The dispensing errors was 99% were down. When I asked him about why it's not 100, the feedback was, well, the 1% was for items that weren't in the robot. The wastage on stock out of date disappeared. The time they spent dispensing, walking around, putting stock away, was down by 30%. Their staff levels, they reduced them by 40% across different areas in the pharmacy in terms of employing different people for different jobs that they were doing. So that was a real world benefits that the customers got from using our automation solution. Next. So is it value for money for a pharmacy, which is obviously one of the key questions we get asked. So we did some costings based on the average price of our robot over the last 12 months. And if you assume it lasts 10 years and they last a lot longer, and it only works 40 hours like a human does, it worked out about £6 an hour. And that's £6 an hour fixed for 10 years. There's no annual pay increases, there's no sick pay, no holiday pay. So it's a flat £6 per hour. And on top of that, you get potentially 25 hours a week back to put into other areas. So is it a good investment for the pharmacy? Well, it's financially, it seems quite sensible over a longer period. Next. Having the robot is just one element. The other key element that you have to look at when investing in automation is who you're dealing with, your partner. Next. Next. Now, there's a lot of companies out there now vying into this sector. And I always say to all my customers that come looking, don't just take the marketing hype or the fancy sales pitch. We can all make wild claims. You know, I quite easily say our robot is the best in the universe. It's a meaningless claim. So look into it a bit more. And I always say, go and see the suppliers at their place. Have a look at the product, kick it and punch it. Customers come in and spend 3 or 4 hours looking at our robot, delving into features, the benefits, the flaws. It's a lot of money they're spending. It's a long-term investment that you don't want to rush into. Next. Yeah, so visit and speak to as many customer sites as you can. Once you've seen it in the supplier's premises, it'll bring up lots of questions. You can then take these to the customers who are using them, get their feedback on it. And don't always go for price. Cheapest doesn't always mean it's the best if it lacks the support and the backup. And there's no such thing as a free lunch. Evaluate the company, its culture and ethics and focus of the company. Next. I know I'm going over. Have a look on our website. You'll see some testimonials from all our customers and what they think of our product. Next. That's about it. A bit over. Sorry, Helen.
No, that's great. So thank you very much. Thank you so much. I think it was absolutely fantastic to learn about that, and actually, you know, the things you can save with automation. And what I've learned is kick it, hit it, see it. Don't listen to sales pitches, and there's no free lunch. But you know, obviously, thank you very much for supporting us and the sponsorship tonight. Skills for health. Not that we've not learned not to listen to sales pitches, but I'm sure that you know we're on it.
Yes,
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Yes, My name is Ankit. I'm an account manager at Skills for Pharmacy, and we are heavily focused on apprenticeships. Next, Helen, please. Yes, about us, we have one of the largest pharmacy education providers in the country. Coverage across England, over 1,000 learners, team of 35 tutors, flexibility of delivery. Everything is online, all the classes. Off-the-job training is also handled within the pharmacies. Enrollment points every month, 5-day typical turnaround, complimentary recruitment service, which we have a whole bunch of talent acquisition team, very talented, focused on finding the right candidate for you. We pre-screen them before sending you out for the final interview. And we have the digital apprentice service support as well for all the pharmacies. Next. Increasing in demand, the pharmacy industry is evolving rapidly, and majority of the pharmacies are moving towards this approach of recruiting as many apprentices as they can within the pharmacy. It sort of goes hand in hand with work morale. At the same time, the candidates are learning about the pharmacy and they're very passionate about the sector. The costs are 95% of the whole cost of the course is funded by the government. If the candidate is 16 to 21 years, the whole course is funded by the government, and there is an incentive of £1,000 for the pharmacy as well if they recruit that candidate. Next. Yes, so next I've mentioned this as well. So yes, so the wages would be £6.40 minimum per hour for the candidate. Again, like I said, it's government funded. Incentives, I've gone through this as well. So yep, next please. Next. So the level 2 module delivery would be 1 year, and the level 3 pharmacy technician would be 2 years. Next. Next, please. Yep. So there has been PTPD funding by the scheme run by the government. The deadline was a couple of weeks ago, and they've had allocated 540 slots and 530 places, maximum of 22 available per group. There are a lot of pharmacies who have taken advantage of this funding scheme, and a majority of them are being enrolled by Skills for Pharmacy. Next. Next, please. Yeah. So our recruitment platform, we are on Reed, Just Apply, Indeed, Google, Apprenticeship, Digital Apprenticeship, the National Apprenticeship website as well by the government. So like I mentioned before, the candidate will be screened before the final interview stage by the pharmacy. And if you like the candidate, you could always give them the final job offer letter. And if not, you could always tell us, can we have another candidate? And there's no limit to that. So we will find the right suitable candidate for you as we screen them as well. Next. So we have a boot camp. We have boot camp training running throughout the year. We have different sectors such as Liverpool boot camp, London boot camp, Lancashire boot camp. So that what that is it's a free. It's a 10-week module heavy course which preps the candidates for their readiness for level 3, so they can jump in straight to level 3, and they do that as a voluntary basis. So that just shows how passionate the candidates are, and they'll be ready to be enrolled, and they usually are on our retainer. So within the postcode area, if you are looking for that candidate, we can always offer you that candidate. Next. Yeah, next. I'll mention this as well. So yes, why hire bootcamp candidates? Because like I said, they're very passionate. They approach us and we pre-screen them. We get them ready for the level 3 pharmacy technician course, and the funding, the cohort raising, and the funding request is done from our side. So all the pharmacy has to do is just link their account with us on the Digital Apprentice website, and we'll take it over from there, really. So there's absolutely nothing they have to worry about in terms of getting the candidates in the right places. Next. Yeah, done that. Yep. Next. So that would be me, guys, and I've got my details here on the slide, and I think Helen would be also sending you my details over. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much. So you've got an efficient dispensing process. You've got an upskilled team. What sort of services could you do with that? I think we're going to hear from Timper next.
Hi, thanks, Nick. So my name's Helen Thompson-Parry. I'm one of the key account directors at Timper Health Technologies. I'm an audiologist by background, and I've worked for Timper for about 4.5 years now. So have a real passion for the pharmacy sector, because that's where the massive growth within the ear and hearing health service has been over the past few years. Next slide, please, Helen. Now, Timper was founded by our CEO and founder, Dr. Krisham Ramdu. Next slide, please. Dr. Krisham Ramdu is an ENT surgeon by background, and he realised when he was doing the NHS entrepreneurial programme about 6, 7 years ago how inefficient the ear care pathway was. It was very disjointed, very long waiting lists. People were arriving within outpatient department for microsuction ear wax removal, when he knew that service with the right training and right equipment could very safely be delivered by allied healthcare professionals within primary care. So he kind of went about designing and obviously engineering the Timper system. Now, I'm sure as pharmacists, you'll all be aware that people come into pharmacy asking for earwax softening drops, complaining of earache, and unless you look in the ear, actually, it's a challenge to know if you are advising the right treatment plan for those patients. During COVID as well, the GP stopped the provision of any earwax removal services because they used to do irrigation via the practice nurses. So I think there was a natural trend to move away from that. So obviously since COVID, there's been a massive growth in the provision of microsuction earwax removal services within pharmacy, as well as now, obviously, we all know it's very challenging to get an appointment with your doctor. So we are working on 8 PGDs that would empower your clinicians, your technicians and pharmacists to be able to deliver private PGDs for earache, common earache conditions. You will know that obviously you can use pharmacy fairs for acute otitis media for 1 to 17-year-olds, but I'm sure a lot of you already have a lot of adults coming in thinking that they can be seen for adult ear conditions. Next slide, please. So the Timper does everything that you need. It allows you to take a thorough case history of somebody's hearing and ear health. It allows you to clean the ear if there is any wax either obscuring the view of the tympanic membrane, so you can see exactly what you're looking at, or if the wax is troublesome and it's built up to a point that it's causing a reversible impact on their hearing. It allows you to ask for advice and guidance through our ENT and audiologist specialists, and it also allows you to record everything on the Timper cloud. Next slide, please. So many of your clinicians, your pharmacists especially, will have been trained to use a standard otoscope. Hopefully some of you will even use the Timper, but there's a big difference between the Timper and the standard otoscope. It's double the magnification, so it's 9.2 magnification as opposed to 4.2. So the image quality, you can zoom, you can focus, you can change the white light balance, you can take videos, you can take images. So for clinical governance and record keeping, it really keeps you safe. It's evidence of what you've done, why you've done it, and the condition that you've left the ear in. So a lot of our TIMPA clinicians out there actually use the TIMPA for the pharmacy first acute otitis media for 1 to 17-year-olds, because they love how well they can see when they're using the TIMPA and the fact they can record the images. Next slide, please. Microsuction, it's a lot of people, obviously, unless you've had wax removed, and by the way, 1/3 of the adult population actually requires intervention for wax removal, so there's a big unmet need out there. But it's known as the gold standard. It's the safest method to remove wax. Previous irrigation, water-based method, you could apply pressure to the eardrum and then you could cause a trauma with that water-based old-fashioned method. And also when you just wash it out, which is what practice nurses previously did in GP practices, you don't see, when you remove the top bit of wax, sometimes you uncover an infection sitting beyond the wax, and then you can obviously advise to either see the GP for atomized spray or whatever, or if you have a PGD or if you're an IP pharmacist, you can offer a treatment plan yourselves. But with the water method, washed everything out, didn't know there was any infection, and then obviously it's a massive breeding ground for an infection, a wet, moist environment. So microsuction, safe, painless, and very fast. You only have to soften the wax for 2 to 3 days before you do the procedure, and you can see what you're doing at all times. So it's very safe. Next slide, please. You can also, with the TIMPA, we're not just about microsuction earwax removal. We are very much about ear and hearing health, and that's why we're actually developing the 8 PGDs, private PGDs, that any TIMPA clinicians, pharmacists, possibly technicians, it's all to be decided, but that will be launched early in the new year. You can also check somebody's hearing. It allows you to do a 360 complete ear and hearing health check. So if you identify there's a weakness in their hearing, you'll be able to refer on via our platform to a registered hearing aid audiologist for full diagnostic audiometry as well. So it really does allow you to look after the ear and hearing health, as well as obviously the microsuction earwax removal, which is a good revenue stream for you. By the way, if you are offering ear aid clinics for adults, about 50% of people that come in and feel like they've got an infection, it's actually just wax. So by offering those ear aid clinics and looking at the health of somebody's ears, you'll identify lead for your wax removal clinics as well. Next slide, please. So why we will train non-ear specialists, and this is super important, is that you have access to the remote review platform through our safe TIMPA cloud, where all your data is incredibly safe and secure. So with the click of 2 buttons, when you've uploaded the data, you can ask our audiologists, and that can be escalated to ENT if required, for advice and guidance on the appropriate treatment plan if you're not sure about a certain pathology, or if you see something that doesn't look normal and you want a second medical opinion. So that is part of the TIMPA subscription, that the remote review service is available. And when you're new to ear and hearing health, people love the fact that they've always got that back-end support. Next slide, please. So as I said, all the data, your case history, your digital consent form, your videos, your images before and after, your hearing check at the 4 frequencies, it's all uploaded to what we call the TIMPA cloud, where you can look at data analytics. If you have more than one store, you can look at what's happening in your different stores. You can request remote review from our team of experts. You can create PDF documents for onward referral to GP. And all your data, we work with the NHS, it's all DTAC compliant. So your data, and not all our competitors out there, your data is very, very safe with ourselves. Next slide, please. So the amount of revenue, so just to give you an idea, the average cost for microsuction earwax removal is about £60 nationally. In some areas, it can be £80+. It depends on how you deliver it. Some pharmacies have a technician that will be delivering, 2, 3, 4 clinics per week. However, it depends on how much clinic time and how much advertising you do. But most pharmacies on average do about between 5 and 10 earwax removal appointments per week. If you're charging £60, obviously there's good revenue. If you then factor in the private PGDs that are coming down the line, the fact that Timper refer, you may get a referral fee, probably will, down the line, the fact that you'll sell Optimized spray to everybody who's going to have microsuction earwax removal, there's good revenue stream there for you from a private additional service. Next slide, please. The training, this is a real important differentiator for ourselves. There's two parts to our training. There's the accredited microsuction earwax, accredited otoscopy training course, sorry. And that really enables your clinicians to know about different pathologies, different landmarks, contraindications, how to correctly do otoscopy safely. And then you have the microsuction earwax removal. It's a blended approach. We have an online academy, you have face-to-face group training events, you have observation and sign-off events. So it's a blended approach, but it's accredited otoscopy plus microsuction earwax removal. It's two different courses in one. Next slide, please. And why Timper? We feel that we are the gold standard. We are about ear and hearing health, including microsuction earwax removal. It's not a no-thrills wax removal tool. It's about everything. It's about clinical governance, record keeping, advice and guidance. We've got a professional services team that you can speak to at any point if you need any additional advice. We have a customer support team if any of your hardware or software goes down, if anything breaks down, because it's a subscription-based model, you get a new kit the next day, so you're not without it, you know, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks while your kit's off for repair or whatever. So yeah, we're very proud of what we offer. Next slide, please. I won't go into detail. It includes everything you'll need for an hearing health service, but my name's Helen. My email's helen@timperhealth.com. If you want to schedule in a call to actually explore it in more detail, please feel free to email me. You can even go on our website and you can fill in an inquiry form, and one of our team will reach out to you and set up a call. It takes about half an hour, but we'll go into a lot more detail than I've been able to do. I'm not sure how long that was. Hopefully it wasn't too long. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen, and thank you very much. Thanks to all of our sponsors and for showcasing the stuff that you do to make things easier and other revenue streams for pharmacies to engage in. We know how difficult community pharmacy is at the minute, and this is one of the reasons why I'm certainly hoping to learn something. So we've got now Olivier Picard, the Vice Chair of the NPA, and what we're going to be doing now until we've got you scheduled till 9 o'clock. We won't be later than 9 o'clock, but if it naturally ends a little bit before, that's fine. Put the questions, keep them coming in. We're going to have Olivier concentrating on NHS services first, Q&A after that, and then into private services at the Q&A after that as well. So Olivier, over to you, my friend.
Thank you, Nick, and welcome everyone. I have seen in the chat that there was a couple of questions, and I think before we answer those, let's see how we get on, because some of the services, especially around Timper Health, for example, I use myself and I will use as an example further down this presentation in private services. I always get asked when I start a presentation to talk about myself so that you can position me. I am a community pharmacist like you. I own 4 pharmacies in Berkshire. I am the Vice Chair of the National Pharmacy Association. As Nick said, I'm also a representative of independent pharmacists at Community Pharmacy England. Please don't have a go at me for the lack of funding. We're working hard and hoping that things will improve in the future. For now, I used to work as an area manager in the days of early 2000. Decided that perhaps it would be a good idea to start my own business. So I founded New Days Pharmacy in 2006. And at the time, it was really hard, near impossible to acquire a pharmacist. So I decided to put in some application. And to cut the story short, I, in a space of 12 months, acquired a pharmacy and opened 2 more. I, at the time, thought I have never worked as hard as I did at the time. Starting new pharmacies wasn't easy, but it was my foot into the industry. Today, I would think long and hard before opening a new pharmacy, and certainly acquiring established businesses perhaps make the job a little bit easier, albeit there are certainly uncertainties. And this is why I'd like to talk about the importance of services in pharmacy. You've seen what a robot can do. And in fact, robots could probably replace some of the operations that we do. So talking about how you position yourself within the industry, within your community is very important. One of the big part of what we did over the last few years was COVID vaccinations. The NHS awarded me, if you can call it that, a COVID vaccination contract, which we did outside of the pharmacy in the early days of COVID. That meant that we went from working 9 till 6 to working 8 till 8, 7 days a week. We vaccinated a vast number of people, but more importantly, whilst it was never about what we were doing at the time, the reason we did it was for our community and our patient, and it led on to the pharmacy winning multiple awards as a result. Awards are important for your staff, they're important for your customers, and they are certainly important for your business. And as a silver lining, next slide, please. New Days Pharmacy was awarded Business of the Year. How did I get there? We did everything we can do, from NHS services to private services. We do take people's blood pressure as part of the hypertension case finding service. We participate in emergency contraception. We do NHS flu and COVID vaccinations, but we also do all the other services that we are asked to do. Sometimes I think, especially when it comes to DMS, these can be a few slow services with not many discharges, but I also think that by participating, we show a willingness to the NHS that we are part of the NHS family. Next slide, please. We offer private services equally, and these private services, as you will see on here, include also flu and COVID vaccinations. We do care home training. We do earwax removal using microsuction with the Timpa Health system that you have just seen. I am an independent prescriber. I do remote consultation. I do travel clinic. Whatever I can do, I try to do. And again, when I start these services, sometimes I think the cost of setting up and the time setting it up perhaps doesn't necessarily justify the provision of the service in the first place. But after a few months, maybe a year, depending on the services can grow, and you will see later in this presentation the impact that it can have on the business. Next slide, please. And that was the Pharmacy Business Award, and it was a very proud moment for myself. But I think the important bit is when I returned from the award that night, and I sent this picture to my staff. The next day, everybody was 2 inches taller. I mentioned what it can do to your patient, to your community, but your team, your pharmacy team, feeling like winners, make up for anything else that can go on in a pharmacy. I would certainly think that if you do something that you think is nothing different to what the next pharmacy down the road does, I would ask you to think again, because I thought what I was doing was no different, but it was recognized by the industry as something that perhaps was above and beyond. Next slide, please. So on NHS services, and I'm not going to teach anyone here how to suck egg. We all do this, but I will give you a story about endorsing prescriptions. About 2 years ago, there was a prescription item which wasn't available, therefore it was only available as a special order. The prescription came to us electronically, and we were paying typically about £1,300 for the item on that prescription. And after we had 2 patients on it, and after 2-3 months, I couldn't see the expensive items coming through. So I reached out to the NHS PSA, asked them to confirm what we'd been paid, and we had been paid somewhere in the region of £15 for the item. Now, I'd like to think that I'm a shrewd guy. I do things properly. I endorse prescriptions properly. But on this occasion, it appears that something had gone horribly wrong. I seek clarification with PSNC, now known as Community Pharmacy England, and it's transparent that because the prescription was written electronically, and because the doctor hadn't written a special order and scanned signed the prescription, I was being paid the tariff price, albeit the item was not available and therefore only allowed as a special. I was being paid £15 when I was paying £1,500. That happened nearly 10 times by the time I realized, and it was a huge uphill struggle to get paid. The NHS would not pay me, and therefore I had to literally went begging to the surgery and at the time the CCG, who reluctantly agreed to rewrite the prescription. I suppose I got a lucky escape, but this was a very, very nervy moment. As like you, losing £15,000 in a pharmacy is not something that I can afford. And this is why I say, make sure that if you're dispensing, especially special orders or expensive items, you check that you have received the correct payment. And payment reconciliation is key in making sure that this happens. This is a bad example of something that happened to me, and I wouldn't want it to happen to anyone, because it will quickly cancel any good work that you can do. But the other thing that we've started doing is to stop doing things for free. Now, I'll be honest with you, I continue delivering for free to a point, but the MDS pack, any new MDS pack, we are charging. What am I charging? I'm charging £20 a month. It has caused me a couple of headaches with a couple of patients and especially carers, but I've explained politely that I have a member of staff in a pharmacy that does dispense MDS pack. The cost of consumable is not covered by the NHS. The NHS doesn't pay me for it. And I've had some doctors call me and say, how dare you not offer this service for free? And I'll be honest, 7-day prescription makes no difference to me. The charge is the charge, and people are very welcome to go down the road if they think they can get a service for free. And the moral here is that a good service is not necessarily a free service. We have a high number of patients who pay the £20 fee for 2 reasons. The first one is they are our loyal customers and they enjoy the service they receive. But equally, I think some people have gone away and then come back to us sheepishly to say, you know what, I can't find anyone that will do my MDS. And whilst I couldn't possibly recommend anyone to do this, this is something that we decided to do. It includes the delivery charge. And obviously, if a patient requires it under the DDA, we tend to stick to a free service, but that would be following a rigorous DDA assessment. Next slide, please. Exploring opportunities. What service do you provide in your pharmacy today? Are you participating in a pharmacy first service? Are you getting your team to help with the recruitment of patients for pharmacy first? Are you participating in a contraceptive service? Are you doing DMS, NMS? Are you doing hypertension case finding service? Are you fitting people with ABPM? Do you have an ABPM? Do you know how it works? Are you participating in a stop smoking service? All these things are things that you probably today need to consider doing if you don't do. This is, again, an opportunity, and it's also what it looks like for your patient. I am a believer that if you continue dispensing and just getting involved in dispensing, your patient will go down the road to access those services. Therefore, why not do them yourselves? what sort of opportunities are there? Well, we know Pharmacy First will expand, currently 7 conditions. I realize, and I'm one of them, that we often don't meet the gateway the threshold that allows us to be able to claim for the extra £1,000. Do I stop doing the Pharmacy First consultation? No, because I know that when the number of conditions increase, I know that when the doctors eventually wake up and realize that actually the referral is not a competition, it's actually complementary to what they do, I think that it will make a big difference to my business. It will make a big difference to my patient, and it will make a big difference to my community. I also participate in flu and COVID vaccination. We started from the early days, and today, whilst we do flu and COVID vaccination in the pharmacy, we tend to run clinics in a consulting room on set days with set vaccinators, and we will try and concentrate the number of appointments around those times so that my pharmacist and my other clinical clinicians can focus on delivering the other services. It's important to embrace skill mix, and you've seen with pharmacy, for skills for pharmacy, declaration of interest. 2 of my dispensers currently are undergoing the training with skill for pharmacy. They are speaking very highly about it, but I also trained my pharmacy technicians in ear microsuction so that the more than one person can provide the service. And you will see later in the presentation that I'm looking to expand the services into all my pharmacies. We also sign up to PGDs. We work with PGDs, but I do think that in the future, the independent prescribers, when they are qualified, come out of university, will also add an extra dimension to my NHS businesses. Next slide, please. If you come back one slide, I think we've skipped one. This is a complicated slide. I just wanted to point out really the difference between what's included in the global sum and what's outside the global sum. And I would certainly encourage all of you to look at the other budget. So we know the global sum is £2.592 billion, the bits that's under immense pressure. But there are other services such as COVID vaccination, flu vaccination, lateral flow test distribution. Pharmacy First, to a point, is outside of the shopping trolley of the 2.592 billion. These services are allow you to tap into money that's outside of that, and it can make a huge difference to your business. The only caveat that I would say is this slide is slightly inaccurate because on the flu vaccine, the 4th line down, the price of the vaccination, the flu vaccine itself, falls into category M, so it's part of the £800 million margin. But apart from that, this slide is fairly accurate, and I would certainly invite you to look at these sort of services outside of the global sum. Next slide, please. So NHS vaccination, as you know, it can be a sideline, and let's not kid ourselves. The doctors do those for a reason and a reason only, and you should treat it exactly the same way. You know, if I get £7.54 for a COVID vaccination and £10.06 for a flu vaccine as a admin fee or administration fee, add to that the cost of the flu vaccination, actually at £7.60 for a patient, which would take me about 5 minutes. If I take a quick calculator and I do £17.60 times 12 patients an hour, I can soon make a good day of it. And I would certainly encourage you to consider doing this if it's maybe too late for this year, but going forward, something that you'd want to do. We support care homes. We go into housebound patient. And actually what that does, whilst it's perhaps not as swiftly as doing it in the pharmacy, actually give the right message to the NHS that we're here to support them in their journey. And that's also very important. We've done pop-up sites outside of the pharmacy. I've been invited to go to mosques to talk to people about flu and COVID vaccination. The uptake is sometimes low, but it can give the right message. It also helps to make connection, which link to private services. I now go to school and offices and offer the flu vaccination and the COVID vaccination there. And again, it is well received. It's another bit that takes a lot of time, but actually is welcomed by the community. Next slide, please. Other vaccination opportunities in the future, the vaccination will be devolved to ICBs, which means that vaccination for children, RSV vaccination, shingles vaccination will become available. And I think there is an opportunity here for community pharmacy in offering greater access, in offering longer hours, perhaps no appointment necessary if you can work on that basis. But more importantly, you have the team in your pharmacies that allow you to be nimble and accessible. And I would certainly encourage you to talk to your ICB and let them know that you're available. Nothing might come of it immediately, but going forward, you're likely to see a big difference. Next slide, please. Discharge medicine service, you all know the fee associated to it. I will say it very quickly and discreetly, please don't quote me on it. There is not a huge amount of money in the global sum, and if suddenly we started to get zillions of DMS, it would put the rest of the funding under pressure. However, if you're going to receive a DMS, it's an essential service. That means you must complete them, and therefore I would encourage you to do it. Do I go proactively and talk to my NHS trust and say, send me as many DMS as possible? Perhaps I don't do that, but certainly if one comes, I will do that. I will do them. Could they refer more? I'm sure that will increase in the future. I think the NHS also recognizes the current situation with the funding, and therefore this is perhaps why we're not seeing in certain areas as many as others. Next slide, please. Hypertension case finding service. This is another one that is hugely welcome by the patients. I hear noise that some GPs are trying to campaign so community pharmacies stop doing it, which means that we must be doing something right. A blood pressure machine that I probably paid about 100 quid has been paid several times over, because every time I take a blood pressure for someone, I log it on Farm Outcomes. I offer lots of private services during which I take people's blood pressure, and a lot of the time these people don't take any medication, whether it's for weight loss or ear microsuction. I sometimes just say, have you had your blood pressure taken recently? People say no, and that link selling allows me to recruit some people. But more importantly, it links nicely on the ambulatory monitoring service, ABPM. I have one ABPM in each pharmacy. I paid about £1,000 for them, might be a little bit less through the NPA. I think we had an agreement to get a small discount. But ultimately, that's another service that patients have really welcomed. I have 4 pharmacies. I work with many surgeries, and most surgeries are not really welcoming the service. However, the couple of surgeries that I have realize that what we do is good, and we mean well when we do it. They are now referring us patients, and they are keen. They chase up the results, surprisingly. They said to me, oh, you told me you were going to see Betty on Monday. It's Wednesday. Where's the result? Sometimes, the appointment has had to change. But it's interesting to see how some surgeries chase the result, because that's how they work. And I think there is a huge opportunity for us to work with local surgeries, that if we don't, you still have an opportunity to check people's blood pressure, and the criteria. It's all on the CPE website. I'm not going to talk about it. Some pharmacies are doing really well. The only thing I would say is, don't just do the £15 clinical check of a case finding service. Do fit people in with their BPM. I thought initially I might lose it. The machine might break. People might lose it. They might nick it. They might not return it. All these sort of things that went wrong. You know what? We've done dozens of the ABPMs. The machine has always returned. It's never been a problem, and it's still working fine. If you haven't got one, just thanks order one. Next slide, please. Contraception service. If you come back a slide, contraception service is again a consultation where you are able to offer the service. This is something new. Not all pharmacies are participating. There are different levels in a service, but more importantly, you need to understand that there is a high possibility that this contraceptive service will be bundled with Pharmacy First and hypertension case finding service, which means that in order to get the payment in the future, you might have to offer all the services. So now is a good time to get trained and start offering the service so that when the time comes, you're not caught by surprise. Next slide, please. And of course, there is Pharmacy First. Now, I'm not going to talk about Pharmacy First because the NPA will organize some Pharmacy First specific training or masterclasses. But the picture of referral will vary from county to county and place to place. However, this is, I think, the best service that we have seen in pharmacy for a long time. The fact that we now have access to NHS medicines for NHS services, we can make a real difference to patients. And I would certainly encourage everybody to try and do their best. Last month, none of my pharmacy got the £1,000 threshold payment. It's heartbreaking. In fact, the month before, none of my pharmacies got it either. It is hard. Trust me, I know how hard it is. Does it mean that we stop doing the consultation? No. We might do 19 and we might miss out. It's heartbreaking. But we still offer the service because ultimately I'm a believer that eventually the threshold will go and the number of consultations will go up. And we will be in a position where with more than one clinician on site, we will be able to deliver a quality service for patients, for GPs, for NHS, for everybody. And the difference to your business, depends on it. Next slide, please. Relationship is everything, and you heard me talk about it already. Relationship with your GP surgeries, the relationship with the ICB. Think of the relationship around, the time where I didn't get paid for my special item, or the time where I was asked to open a vaccination center because the local ICB know that I'm a keen person. They know I want to participate. So eventually they come and knock on your door, and this is not to be neglected. You need to get yourself known, and especially if you're a new pharmacist, new in the area, you've acquired a Lloyd's pharmacy, you've opened a new pharmacy, you've just started in business, you need to make yourself known, and you need to share what you do it, but more importantly, why you do it. Remember this, it's not about what you do. Everybody can tell you what you do. It's why you do it. You need to go home tonight and think about why you do things. Those relationships will make a real difference to your business. Trust me. Next slide, please. And it's all about time. Do we have the time to do everything? The relationship and marketing is important. Google reviews. I like to talk about Google reviews. I love 5-star reviews. And I get really annoyed when someone put a 1-star review and couldn't actually send me an email or go to the pharmacy and say, I'm unhappy with the service, rather than tell Google about it. Do I learn more from the bad review than the good reviews? Probably. Which one do you think makes me happier? Actually, ultimately, we get more 5-star reviews than we get the 1-star. But it's how you manage it. And my advice is own your Google business. Make sure that if there is a review, you have an email address that's linked to it, so you can receive that review, review the review, and reply to it. So thank you very much. It means a lot that you've taken the time to give us a 5-star review, or if it's a 1-star review, just say, can we please take it offline so I can address your issue? But at least you've recognized that that those reviews have been left. Invest in your staff training. Invest in your service delivery. We're going to go through the private services in a minute, and you will see that the investment sometimes can be quite heavy, but the reward can also be magnificent if you do things well. Recognize about the workload. Don't work till midnight. You need to try and introduce skill mix so you can be supported. Think about the change, and the change to your business are important. Yes, change is hard. Yes, my staff, my pharmacists that I employ, every time I come up with an idea, they say, "Oh my God, not another idea." But actually, it also makes their job more interesting. And whilst it might be difficult initially to introduce change in the pharmacy, actually, in the long run, it will benefit your business and your community. More importantly, if you can't do everything, and I appreciate that it might be difficult to do everything, especially straight away, I would focus on what works for you and what can work for you immediately. Next slide, please. The NPA is full of resources, and you will have all received an email as NPA members about the new membership hub. These are pictures from the membership hub that I've taken yesterday. I registered for mine. It gives you access to providers, and it gives you access to private services, all the NPA partners, whether you're looking to set up a new service, you're looking to for a solicitor, you're looking for HR advice, it is all on there. Next slide, please. This concludes the NHS part of the presentation. I think we're going to take a break, Nick, and ask for some questions before we go on private services. Is that all right?
Yeah, thank you, Olivier. So we have got some questions that have come in. Some of them are to do with the private services, Olivier, but which I think we'll pick up in a minute. There's a couple of questions and comments about would an individual contractor be better to concentrate on something that was easy to deliver, or is the global sum question something that we should all be considering? So some thoughts on that would be helpful. There was a question about pharmacy first and walk-in, which I think I have answered in the chat. And just another question about why would you contact your ICB? So I think there's some stuff there. Which services, NHS services to pick? Does the global sum really matter, or is it about how to deliver? Why would you contact your ICB? And then any other questions, please raise your hand, put in the questions, I'll put them to Olivier. And then Olivier, I've got a separate question for you as well.
That's great. So which services should you start doing? You need to do what's right for your business, and you knew I was going to say that. If I were in your shoes today, there are three parts to the NHS remuneration. The first part is the single activity fee. It's linked to the number of prescriptions you dispense. There is not much you can do about that. The more you dispense, I guess, the more single activity fee you'll get. That will benefit your business. The second part is the £800 million that you keep hearing about, which is subject to clawback. The more you dispense, hopefully the more of the £800 million you get, albeit that is not equally distributed around the country. Again, you can't do very much about that because it really depends where you are. The third bit, which is outside the single activity fee and outside the £800 million of margin on category and product, is services. And this is really where I think today you should focus your efforts. You should engage in the services, and in the services that will probably will be the easy fruit. Taking someone's blood pressure takes minutes. The farm outcomes or equivalent sonar have got templates that you populate. It's something that people enjoy. It's not necessarily something that you have to market heavily. You can link it easily with conversation that you have with patients. It could be someone that comes for a headache. Let me check your blood pressure. There are things that you can really easily do. That would be, for me, a quick win. Very little training, very little equipment required, and very, very welcomed by patients. I would try and focus on a new medicine service, because that's, again, another one which you can easily do. Lateral flow distribution is outside of the global sum. All my pharmacies are signed up. I don't think every of them give a lateral flow test each month. So, which one would I pick? I would try and pick the one that can generate some return for the effort into it. And I would say that for now, doing new medicine service, doing hypertension case finding service, and participating in flu vaccination would probably be the one that I'd jump in if you don't already do them. Why engage with the local ICB? Well, ICB is like the old PCT, isn't it? For those who've been long around, they get devolved some budget. They have some budget. They have got their ears to the ground. They talk to doctors. They talk to contractors. And ultimately, when they get the budget and they get to use it, if they don't know what you can do, how you can support them, they are never going to invest in you. You need to be known. You need to talk to them so that if they have a meeting, they can invite you to the meeting. Your LPC might be a good door, a good foot through that door. But I'll give you an example. One of the pharmacies that I acquired in 2019, just before COVID. The timing was awful. There's nothing I could do about it. But the ICB sort of asked me to join a meeting following me introducing myself to them. They know I'm an independent prescriber. They're now thinking about all the things that we can do together. They ask me, how can you support the area? Because they know that things aren't happening how they should. And this is why you need to talk to your ICB. It might bring nothing for the foreseeable future, but there will be a time if you keep knocking at that door where things come through. You know, I get people all the time asking me whether I can do an RSV vaccination or shingles vaccination. Currently, this sits with GP surgeries. Tomorrow, when they get the budget and they look at their area and they realize that they actually don't get the percentage of patients to be vaccinated or not quickly enough, then they'll know where to come. And the reason they'll know where to come is because I've done other bits and pieces with them. And I've also reminded them that I was here for it. I think this is why it's important that you talk, not just to your GP, but to your local ICB. Your PCNs, they've all got pharmacists. That might be an easy way in. And as I said, you might expect nothing in return for some time, but keep working at it because eventually it'll pay fruition. Nick, I've answered the questions.
Yeah. So I've got those. So thank you, Olivia. I would echo the ICB comment as well from both some roles I do in LPC in Cornwall. We've taken over the last 5 years about £100,000 worth of additional services income for 93 contractors to nearly £800,000. And as a disclosure of interest, I do sit on an integrated care board, and there will be more money coming to primary care. So we absolutely need to be somewhere within that system. The question I wanted to ask you, Olivier, is, you know, despite the rumours, you and I are often known as quite nice people. You know, having to do some stuff, you know, being grilled on the Stay programme and stuff, I've got quite used to taking difficult questions with the campaign. And I know you have on Sky News, know that you do the TV and I do the radio. However, my wife would say I've got a great face for radio. How do
my wife tells me that as well, by the way, Nick.
How do you and those team deliver some of those difficult messages to patients that you've had for a long time? You talked about not charging for things or having now to charge for things you didn't charge for in the past. So how do you get the whole team on board with that messaging? Because that's something I think is particularly difficult for us when we take those difficult decisions, and then we move on to private, if that's okay, Olivier.
Yeah, and actually the two are linked. Okay, I explain. I suppose I understand, but I explain the funding of pharmacies to my team. I explain to them the logic about the too much single activity fee takes too much of the budget and that sort of thing. But more importantly, I talk to them and I speak to the team and say to my technicians who are under the cosh, you know, working under pressure, not being able to turn around the care home patient or the community patient that gets a Nomad pack, for example, and the requests keep coming. I said to them, it's okay to say no. And you know what? If someone feels that strongly that they're not going to pay for it, they may go down the road. But ultimately, I know they'll come back. I'll give you an example. which links to a private service as to how to say no. I offer a weight clinic. I use the Wegovy or Monjaro, and someone said to me, "Oh my God, you're a lot more expensive than online." And I said to him, I said, "That's because you're getting confused with what I do and why I do it." Okay. What I do is do a consultation and I give you a product and you go away. The reason I do it is not to give you a product. The reason I do it is because I think the benefit of losing weight will benefit your health, and it will reverse your type 2 diabetes. You'll feel better. You'll be better when you go on holiday. You know, it'll improve your mental health. This is why I do it. It's exactly the same with doing something for free in a pharmacy on the NHS. Why would I continue providing a service for free, which would stress my team? I said to the team, if we lose a few patients, but focus and continue doing well, what we have always done well, and we then end up being partially funded by the patient themselves, okay? Some of them may initially resist, but ultimately, when they see that the service can continue and that they don't get forgotten, their medicine is ready on time, they understand why we've introduced a charge. And I think this is, the team understands it as well, because it makes their life better. It makes their life, I suppose, easier. And as a result, everybody's on board with it. And I think it's okay to say no. It's a good service is not a free service. If you could take one thing away from tonight, take this away.
Thanks, Olivier. So about self-worth, the self-worth to charge for things and the self-worth to say, actually, I'm worth more than free. That's a really interesting point.
I often say that a solicitor might charge you £300 to write a letter that takes them an hour to write, but it doesn't cost them £300. So why would I keep doing things for £50 if my cost is £50? I need to make a profit because I need to make a profit to invest in my team, to invest in my premises, and to support my business. Same theory.
No.
Thanks, Olivier. On to private. Thanks.
Now we move on to the next slide, please, and we move on to the exciting stuff. Oh, this picture, by the way, was at the Sky News Studios on the day of the ballot result. Sky News Studios, by the way, you'll see from today, from the shine of my head, there was no shine there because I had to go to makeup. So that's interesting. It's funny that it says 5th of September, Richard Brown, when actually it is not the 5th of September and it is not Richard Brown, but we'll skip that part if that's okay. Next slide, please. Now we get to the really, really exciting stuff, the things that will really develop your skills, stretch you, but reward you at the same time. These are an example of private services that I offer. Ear microsuction, travel clinic, private COVID clinic, weight loss clinic, chickenpox vaccination, and the like. I particularly like the top right picture here. This is the first patient that I vaccinated for COVID on the Thursday, this was my patient one, and that patient was ever so grateful. It was the start of an incredible journey. This was an NHS service, but it was the start of an incredible journey. The second picture below is my second favorite picture. This is actually the picture of an ear, which I've taken with the Timpa Health ear microsuction. And I remember the day where it was a busy Friday, and it was this summer, actually. One of the girls come to see me and say, someone is saying that they think they've got an insect in their ear. And they would like you to look into it. And I'm like, are you for real? I am busy. I'm up to here with baskets of prescription to check. Do I really want to go and look in someone's ear who doesn't have an appointment to try and look at it's just a joke. Anyway, I go and do it. And sure enough, when I look into it, there is an insect in the man's ear. I could not believe it. And I said, oh my God, you've got an insect in your ear. Anyway, with a little bit of drops and a little bit of technique, I guess, and we've got the Timpa Health expert on the call tonight, I managed to actually not just take a photo, but remove the insect. Now, trust me when I say this, the man that removed the insect, I charged him for it, and I explained to him that there would be a charge, but he was forever grateful. He sent me an email. He left me a 5-star review on Google, and more importantly, he told his friends. And that is really how the best marketing tool for your business is. If you do things well, people will talk about it. Next slide, please. So I am going to start by showing you a video. Now, this is not me, clearly. We can see that from the hair. This is a Timpa Health video. This is to show you how the Timpa Health actually work. It's a few seconds. I hope this works. One is looking at the ear with a tube inside the patient's ear, and then eventually it all comes out. This worked better. Oh, there we are. There we are. It's showing you, and you can see the bit of wax at the end there. This is, there we are. So, come back her slide. Thank you very much. So, ear microsuction. Who can deliver this service? Well, this service can be delivered by any trained member of the team. If it's a pharmacist, then it is covered by your NPA insurance. If you start training other clinicians, then you might just want to make sure with the NPA that you're insured, and there may be a slight supplement, but ultimately it may be worth doing, because obviously as a pharmacist, if you try to do everything, you might struggle. We work exclusively, I would say, by booked appointment. Why is that? Because there is no point in trying to remove hard wax from someone's ear. We always recommend that people use olive oil, loosening drops for a number of days in order for the wax to be nice. Come back. You're gonna blow my. Someone's getting very excited with the clicks. Yes, we work by appointment only because. Can you come back a slide, please, Helen? We work exclusively by appointment because people need to use wax loosening drops or spray in order to make sure that the wax comes out. It takes initially maybe 30 minutes for a consultation. I can now do it in 5. If the wax is loose, by the time you've done the consultation and taken the patient history, the removal of the wax can be super quick. There is a price point. People know what they're paying, and we're going to come on to the cost on the next slide, please. So this is what I charge, but you can charge whatever you want. I've heard people charge a lot less. I've heard people charge a lot more. But remember, okay, what you charge is important, but if you do it well, people will be prepared to pay. That is one of my pharmacy. I've got a pharmacy down the road that does the same service. They use a different material. They charge less than me. I'm still seeing a lot of patients. And the reason for this is because not only the Timpa equipment is fabulous, but also we offer a professional service. We don't rush things. We look after the patient, and you can see that we charge for both ears or one ear. But to be honest, most people will need both ears done because it's very rare that you have wax in one ear and not the other. There is a little bit of cost initially, £400 per trainee. So if you train 3 people in your pharmacy, that's obviously going to cost you more. There is a reduction, or there was when I did my training initially with the NPA. And then you hire the equipment or rent the equipment from Timpa Health. I do. It costs me about £200 a month. And then there is a little bit of cost per consumable. This is equivalent to about maybe under £5 per patient. So if you go to the next slide, you will then see. So this is my pharmacy or my pharmacies over 3 months. This is with 1 machine currently, but we are going to invest in more machines. In the 3 pharmacies, we have seen 42 people for both ears, 18 people for 1 ear. It's generated an income You can see it there. The cost of renting the machine and the consumable, I have to come off that. But over 3 months, the profit was nearly £3,000, or for a 12-month period would be about £12,000. Now, this is across 2 pharmacies, and this is something that I'm looking to expand across my pharmacies. This is about 5 to 7 patients a week. It's perfectly manageable. You don't have to do it as a separate clinic. You could do 1 at a time. You could decide that you're going to do 1 every morning or 3 every morning, whichever your time allows. Do I advertise for it? I don't. I have a television screen in my pharmacies, and I put it on there. I go on Facebook, and we'll come back to that. And I say that I do it on Facebook, and word of mouth. I heard you do this. There is even an audiologist in next to my pharmacies, where one of my patients went there, and then the audiologist said, "Where did you get your ears clean? They are immaculate." And they said, "I got it done at New Days Pharmacy." And since then, the audiologist now send me patients to have their ears clean. I didn't even contact the audiologist myself. The patient did that for me. If you can get your patient to sell your services, then you know you're on a winner. Next slide, please. The next service that I offer is the travel clinic. This is the biggest private service that I offer. And hopefully Helen will not be too jittery, so she doesn't reveal too much too soon. But I use the travel clinic by Pharma Doctor, which is one of the NPA partners. And this is what I pay per pharmacist. I have 8 pharmacists that I have trained. And therefore, the 8 pharmacists, after discount from the NPA, has cost me nearly £12,000. When I get the bill in the month of May, I really despise it. I really struggle to press pay, but I do it because of what will happen in the next slide. Don't just do it yet. This is mostly a pharmacy-led service, which means that only my pharmacists can participate. We use a booking system, which allows us to manage the workload. But whilst the team cannot really participate, they can certainly take telephone numbers when people inquire. They take their numbers, they pass them on to me, and I have developed a system now across my pharmacies where a lot of the appointments, to ease the pressure of my pharmacists who are otherwise busy, I will do a telephone consultation with the patient and then book them in for the vaccination. Next slide, please. So some pharmacies will charge an initial consultation of £20 or £25 per patient. I don't, but some people do. And I could see why, because I get a lot of time wasters. Sometimes I'll spend 10 minutes with someone on the phone and it generates nothing. They might need nothing. Other providers charge. Currently, I charge nothing, but I have included the price the price of the consultation in the price of my vaccines. I often do a teleconsultation, as I explained, where I determine the need of the patient. And actually, this is what I call my sales pitch. I am better at selling than my stretched pharmacist, because they may not remember to sell them a traveler's diarrhea antibiotic or altitude sickness medication. They may miss something in trying to rush the consultation. The fact that I can do that works well. I often do it after work when people are available, and I use my team to manage people's expectation. We've got your number. We know you're traveling. Someone will give you a ring. It may be in the next 24 hours. And we don't lose any business for that. To the contrary, we probably gain some business. The vaccination get done at a pharmacist by any of my trained pharmacists. So remember, I have spent £12,000 on training my team. And if we go to the next slide, please. This is the income that I generate. Over the last 12 months across my 4 pharmacies, I have completed nearly 1,500 consultations. It had generated a revenue of £174,000, which is an average spend per patient of £122.80. The profit, once I deduct the cost of my vaccine and the cost of my initial investment of £12,000, will be £87,000 minus 12. It's about 75 grand. So across my 4 pharmacies, I have managed to generate in the last 12 months £75,000 of profit for offering the travel clinic. Remember what I said about pressing pay for the 12 grand initially. It's hard. I know it's hard, but with time, this will pay for itself several times over. Next slide, please. Another service that I've recently started is a private COVID vaccination. Now, obviously, with the reduction in eligible patients, more and more people become ask for private COVID. Now, remember, I still got 8 pharmacists to train. At £500 a pharmacist, I nearly spent 4 grand on training them. That was on top of the £12,000 I've already spent. I tried to argue with Pharma Doctor, but Pharma Doctor did say to me, but Olivier, what we're going to do is we're going to market the service for you. We're going to give you appointments. And I said, let's see. I decided to bite the bullet. And if you go next slide, please, you will see what happened. In the 6 months, we have done 520 vaccination with the Pfizer vaccine, for which we charge £85 per patient. And this includes 179 referral by Pharma Doctor. So actually, the 179 times £85, when you take the cost of the product out, has paid for the training of my pharmacists. But you can see that we have done 3 times over that number of consultation. Because often people come in pairs, don't they? So in 6 months, using the service, we have generated a profit of £12,000 and a total turnover of 44,000. And I exclude the cost of anyone requiring a private flu jab at the same time. This is really, really worth doing. This is easy. This doesn't require any sell. People ask for that service. If you wanted to do one of them, this is one that would do quite quickly. Next slide, please. The weight loss clinic, that's a very interesting service. This is another service that we do. Now, the weight loss clinic is a little bit more time consuming. It's included in my Pharma Doctor subscription, so it's cost me nothing more than the package with a travel clinic. Where it is different is the amount of learning that I've had to do. The first consultation takes about 45 minutes. I can probably wrap it up in 30 minutes, but patients have a lot of questions. Follow-up consultation every 4 weeks will take me a little bit less time because the questions have been answered. But where the learning is where I've had to spend a lot of my time. Now, I spend a lot of time in the car. I do a lot of running. I'm a runner, so I might put a podcast for 2 hours about Ozempic or about weight loss or about the sugar doctor or whatever they might be called. And I might listen to advice. And I've picked up things along the road which have allowed me to provide a personal service. I'm no doubt not the cheapest. I'm sure you can go and buy it cheaper online from one of the online pharmacies. However, the patient that I have, they enjoy the service and they don't mind paying for it. How do I advertise for my service? Word of mouth. People say, I know someone who's come to you. I put regular update on my Facebook page for my pharmacy. I advertise the service on my HealthPoint television, which is in my window and inside the pharmacy. I've spoken to local surgeries who have sent me some patients. The same surgery that refer me patient for hypertension. When I met with the partners, I said that I also offer a free private service, a private service for weight loss. And they send me a couple of patients. All you need is to get started. It is initially hard to ask for a couple of £100 to a patient for something, but ultimately, if they don't give the £200 to you, they'll give it to someone else. Next slide, please. The NHS doesn't offer that service. So in the last 6 months, I started the service in January of this year, but next 6 months, I have done 173 consultation. That is not, by the way, 173 patients. This is 173 patient, 173 consultation. A patient might come every 4 weeks. So it is less patient. Each patient will spend on average about £200. That has generated a revenue for my pharmacy of £34,000. Roughly speaking, you'll spend about 100 quid on average on buying your Wegovy or your Mounjaro. They will have deducted the cost. So if I halve my revenue, I still generate in 6 months about £17,000 of profit. I do this without a second pharmacist. I do that as part of my daily consultation. I spread them through the day, and that's that. And I do apologize for forgetting to remove when I prepared the slide that they will also get a flu jab. I have, however, given flu jab to people who've come for a weight loss consultation. But more importantly, I link those to hypertension, because all of those need their blood pressure checked. So the first consultation include that. So on top of my £200 that they will spend on the medication and the consultation, they also generate a £15 hypertension case finding service. I have also fitted people with an ABPM on the back of that, especially the second month when they come back and their blood pressure is still high. They accept and they understand the importance of the service. But you can see that when you add weight loss, travel clinic, this generates a huge amount of profit for my organization. Next slide, please. This is Graham. Graham was a oversized, overweight man. He went, and after 5 months, he lost 4 pounds. His BMI reduced by 7. His waist circumference down 8 inches. He reversed type 2 diabetes. He reversed hypertension. He's exercising like crazy. And yes, please don't say it, I have changed a lot on that picture as well. I'm saving you, Nick, the bother of making that comment. Graham is delighted. He's made a difference to his life. Remember why we do it. We do it because we change people's lives. We don't do it just to give them a product. Think about why you're offering these services. Next slide, please. Chickenpox vaccination. It's something else that I do through the Pharma Doctor. It's one of the AMTIN services that are available as part of my unlimited package. It's not necessarily a very busy one, but you will see on the next slide in a minute that it also is a profitable business. You don't need a second pharmacist for that. It doesn't take a huge amount of time. Each patient required 2 doses. Parents today are busy. They don't want to take 2 weeks off with a child at home who has chickenpox. There's also a lot of theory and thinking that if you don't have chickenpox, you don't have shingles in the future. There's a lot of people who are prepared to and believe in immunization. I do very little local advertising. I have spoken to my surgeries. I put it on my television. You see the recurring theme here. Again, I've read on it. I listened to podcasts. I listened to people's experience. I've spoken to drug reps. I am up to date with my skills. I can offer the service. And if you go on the next slide, please, you will see that this is another service which in 6 months has been 126 completed vaccination. That's 63 patients, mostly children, by the way, about between the age of 12 months and 48 months, 1 to 4 years is typically your patient. We charge about £80 per patient. Some people charge a bit less. It has generated nearly £10,000 of revenue for the pharmacy. It is done across 3 of my 4 pharmacies. One of them is in an area where we haven't had any uptake for some reason, something to focus on in the future. Once you deduct the cost of the medication itself, it still generates a profit of £5,500 or just over. Again, another service worth doing. And that when you vaccinate 1 child in nursery, trust me, mum will put it on a WhatsApp group of the nursery and you'll have all the other parents coming, which is why our numbers look good. Next slide, please. So you could say, how does this man do everything? Well, I do it. Remember, I have 8 pharmacists, including myself, in the organization. We all participate in these services. I don't work full-time in a pharmacy, but other people do. When I'm at home, like today, I did a clinic this morning around pharmacy. I was at home this afternoon. I made a couple of phone calls, spoke to someone who wanted to do a weight loss clinic. I've spoken to them on the phone. I've booked them in the pharmacy. What can I do next? Well, I hear that there are some people doing very successful menopause clinic. Now, the menopause clinic needs, it's growing. People ask for it. When I speak to my menopausal wife, she says, oh my God, menopause clinic. I could know so many mums that would come to you. I think I'm perhaps the wrong gender, but I'm an independent prescriber. There is possibly something that I can do about it. I think if I had a menopausal woman that could perhaps understand the symptoms better, that might launch. I'm looking into this very seriously. This is something that I think could work well. Typically, to give you an idea, people charge between 100 to 200 pounds per consultation for a menopause clinic. The consultation lasts anything up to an hour. It is something that I think I could make work, and I'm looking into it now. Another area is dermatology. Dermatology clinic is also growing. You know it yourself because you probably have a lot of people that come with OTC consultations. As an independent prescriber, I often prescribe for dermatology, but I think there is something bigger that I can do with dermatology, looking at skin condition. One of my pharmacists recently did an independent prescriber's qualification with specializing in dermatology. And I'm now thinking about how could I develop this in my pharmacy using their skills. And this is something that hopefully we will launch in the new year in 2025. Next slide, please. Allergy clinic. This is something that I used to do, but we stopped because the medicine was no longer licensed for injection at Court Hill, that was. But ultimately, there is a demand for allergy clinic, and I'm always on the lookout in order to try and help people with their hay fever. Again, probably would require a PGD, albeit an independent prescriber could do it. And then finally, another area where growing phlebotomy, that is, some people have started to partner with nationwide labs where they provide a training. You pick up the blood samples, they pick it up, they analyze it, they give the result, you pay at the end of the month, you charge your patient. This is an example of a friend of mine who is doing this. This is not something that I've been able to get my head around completely, but it is something that I'm exploring very seriously. And one strain, taking someone's blood can be very quick. And I'm being told that a 10-minute consultation is all it needs. That can make a huge difference. You know, sometimes I vaccinate healthcare professionals about hepatitis B, especially dental nurses. And some people say, well, I've had a course of Hep B in the past, and I would like to be able to do a Hep B blood test to let them know whether they have the antibodies or whether they need to be vaccinated. Because you could sell a blood test, and then on the back of it, you could probably sell a vaccination service. So there is, again, all these things are linked together. Next slide, please. Digital clinical management system that needs to be considered. This is, in essence, a fancy term for a electronic diary. How can people book in my service? Do I continue using a paper service and what I call the Sigma diary, which one of my pharmacists loves, you know, writing things down in the free Sigma diary. Actually, you could do it equally for free by using Google Calendar. You can use the apps, and the NPA will have partners like the Sharak app. Healthera is another option. You can develop your own if that's what you want to do. You can integrate it in your website. It can be a little bit difficult. initially to get your head around all the appointments. But if you can manage to open the time when you're available, and say, for example, you're a pharmacy proprietor and you have a locum and you book that locum and you've got 4 hours, you could open that diary for 4 hours and people could book in a weight loss consultation and ear microsuction and so on. And your diary would fill up. This morning, I was in the pharmacy from 8:30 until 1 o'clock, and I was non-stop, and I had, I think, 5 earwax removal, 3 travel consultation, and 2 weight consultation. And that's because we booked them at the time that I was a second pharmacist. That eased the pressure on my pharmacist manager, but equally, it